Today, I'm going to show you the 3 things that most buyers in this market get wrong and how to avoid losing thousands of dollars because of it. Firstly, I'm going to tell you how to tell if you're overpaying without being a real estate expert. Secondly, the top inspection red flags in this area that costs buyers the most amount of money. And third, how to negotiate the right way so you keep more cash in your pockets. Let's dive in. But first, if you're buying a home in Everett, Mill Creek, or Bothell, and you want to make sure you're not overpaying, this video is for you. My name is Aaron Yoon. I'm a real estate agent in the Mill Creek area, and I work with buyers who want to do this the right way. So number one, how to tell if you're overpaying. Most buyers look at Zillow estimates and assume that's what the house is worth. But Zillow, you probably know, Zillow can be off by a lot of money. So how do you know actually if a house is overpriced? Well, there's 2 signals that matter, and that is how long it's been on the market and how much traction it's getting. And let me explain further. So there's days on market versus area average. Every area has an average days on market. That's how long homes typically sit before going under contract. In Mill Creek and Bothell, as of today's recording in April, it's about 25 days. And in Everett, it's about 13 days. So if you see a house in Mill Creek that's been sitting for 40 days, or house in Everett sitting for 20 days, it may be overpriced. The market is telling you, hey, all those homes over there, they went within 2 weeks, but this house has been sitting for a 3rd or 4th week. What do you think the market might be telling you? On the flip side, if a house is getting many showings its first week and already has offers, it's probably priced right or even below market. Showing activity tells you everything. Here's the thing. People know what a home is worth based on what else is selling. If you think it's a good deal, a dozen other people think it's a good deal too. And that means there's going to be heavy showing activity. Lots of appointments, multiple offers. But if a house is just sitting there with barely any showings and no offers, that's a sign that the price might be a little too high. Now, here is where most buyers mess up. The hidden trap. It's recent price drops. Let's say you find a house that's been on the market for 50 days and you're thinking, great, I've got all the leverage. I can lowball them. But what you might not know is that they dropped the price $30,000 3 days ago. Now, that price drop just attracted a bunch of new buyers, and while you're planning to see it this weekend, someone else saw it today and already wrote an offer on it. You have to check the price history. When was the last price drop? How much did they drop? And if they did, is it priced similar to the comps? Because if it is, chances are that house is going to be gone soon. Here's what I do for my buyers. I contact the listing agent directly to figure out how much showing activity have they had. Have they had any offers? What's being spoken about verbally with the buyers? If there aren't any offers, what's being spoken about verbally? What's the seller's timeline and what's important to them? And their answers tell me exactly how hot or cold that property is. And that's information the average buyer never gets because they're not in the loop. That's how you know if you're overpaying. Not by guessing, not by trusting Zillow, but by reading the market signals and getting insider information from the listing agent. Whether or not they recently dropped their price recently, if they're not getting many showings and 0 offers are even being spoken of, you know we can come in at a lower offer. The second thing here I want to talk about is the top inspection red flags. Now, there are so many things that could go wrong with the property, but I want to talk about 3 specific things that catch newer buyers off guard. One of the biggest ways that a buyer loses money on their home is by not catching problems during the inspection. And in the Pacific Northwest, there are 3 major issues that I want to go over that cost buyers thousands after closing if they're not caught early. Issue number 1 is mold in the attic. This is super common here because of our climate and moisture, and it happens because of improper ventilation in the attic. When moisture gets trapped in the attic, it builds up and mold starts growing inside. The cost to remediate this can range, I've seen as low as $2,000 to $8,000, depending on whether or not they need to replace insulation. Issue number 2, rodents and pests in the crawl space. Rats are a pretty big problem here. They're looking for somewhere warm to live, somewhere safe, and they can easily squeeze through little nickel-sized holes in the crawl space fence. And once they're inside, they eat and destroy the insulation, they poop and pee everywhere, and it's not good for you. The cost to fix this, depending on the damage, it could be as little as a few grand to upwards of $10,000, depending on how much insulation and vapor barrier that the rats chew through. Issue number 3, flooding in the crawl space. If the property doesn't have proper drainage or a sump pump installed, or even proper ventilation, water can collect in the crawl space, especially during our rainy seasons. Standing water leads to wood rot, mold, and foundation issues. To fix a flooded crawl space, I've seen it as low as a few grand, upwards to $10,000. It just depends on what needs to be done. Unless you're doing an inspection, these aren't things that a lot of people catch. And that's exactly why a thorough inspection is a non-negotiable when buying a house. You need an inspector that can help call this all out, and an agent that knows the vendors that can help you replace this stuff and negotiate off the listing price accordingly. Because if you discover the stuff after closing, well, you're spending now thousands of dollars that could have been completely avoided. Segment number 3, how to negotiate the right way. This is really important. Most buyers will try to negotiate by asking for money off the purchase price, and that is not the smartest move. Let me tell you why. The wrong way. Let's say you're buying an $800,000 house and you negotiate $30,000 off the purchase price, and now you're buying it for $770,000. You're probably thinking, oh, wow, we got such a good deal. We got 30 grand off the purchase price. Well, here's how much that actually saves you. Over 30 years, that saves you about $200 a month in mortgage payments. That's it. That's not that much. Now, here's the right way to negotiate. You ask for seller credits. Instead of asking for $30,000 off the purchase price, you can ask for $30,000 in seller credits. And what that means is instead of deducting that from the total purchase price, you give them the $800,000 that they're looking for, but you ask for the seller to pay down your closing costs by $30,000. Here's what that actually gets you. You can expect your closing costs to cost about $10,000 to $15,000. That's something that you have to pay out of pocket at closing. Well, if you ask for your seller to pay for $30,000 worth of closing costs, you just saved $10,000 to $15,000 out of pocket immediately. And then you can use the rest of the money that the seller owes you to buy down your interest rate. Let's say you're at a 6% interest rate. You can pay points to bring that down from 6 to a 5%. The result? You just saved 10 to 15 grand out of pocket and lowered your interest rate by an entire percent. This saves you about $500 a month in payments. So which is better? 30 grand off the purchase price to save $200 a month for 30 years, or 10 to 15 grand in immediate cash savings, plus you buy down the interest rate, saving you $500 a month for the entire 30-year loan. This makes no difference to the seller. It's the same $30,000 deduction that they're taking, but the way you receive that 30 grand is completely different. So now you know how to tell if you're overpaying on your property. You know 3 very important inspection red flags, and you know how to negotiate the right way by asking for seller credits instead of just reducing the purchase price. Now, if you want to actually work with someone that uses this stuff in real life, we can start with a free buyer strategy session. We'll go through your specific financial situation, what's happening in the Everett, Mill Creek, Bothell market right now, and we'll build your complete offer strategy. We'll tour as many homes as it takes so you develop clarity on what your ideal property looks like. We'll always do a thorough inspection with the inspection fee credited back to you at closing. I will pay for your inspection costs, but you have to mention that you watched to this part of the video. And I'll tell you when a home is overpriced, even if it means we keep looking. Because my job isn't to get you into a house. It's to get you into the right house at a deal you can feel good about. So click the link below to schedule your free buyer strategy session. No cost, no commitment. Let's just make sure your home purchase is a smart one and not an expensive one. Talk soon.